Welcome to the Belly Brain Connection. I'm Hannah Winans. I'm a certified functional nutrition counselor, and I'm on a mission to help educate people about the connection between their gut health and mental well-being. I believe that our gut health is the cornerstone to our overall health, and when we nourish our bodies, we nourish our minds. Belly Brain is for informational purposes only. I'm not offering medical advice here. If you need medical advice, please consult your physician. Thanks for tuning back in. Today is episode 24. Last week, we finished up the three-part series of gut disruptors with a focus on alcohol and NSAIDs and how those can affect your overall gut health. So I hope you found that three-part series helpful and are maybe paying a little bit more attention to some of those things in your diet. And again, just Belly Brain's all about creating awareness. So I'm hoping that helps you to make smarter decisions. For today, I want to talk a little bit about the Gut-Brain Paradox book that I think I brought up to you a couple episodes ago. I've read this and I'm really excited about it. So I just kind of wanted to summarize it a little bit and kind of hit the highlights and encourage you to read it for yourself. It's got some really amazing information in it. Also, let's see, food of the week this week is the mushroom. And I'm not talking psychedelics. I'm talking about the kind that you're going to cook with and eat in your meals. And so I wanted to share with you the health benefits about mushrooms. And I've always felt like mushrooms were kind of, I don't know, I feel like they're kind of complicated. I don't know why I think that. I guess because there's so many different kinds and there's mushrooms that you can eat, that you can't eat, that you can find in the wilderness. I've always been a little bit intimidated by mushrooms for whatever reason. So I'm learning as I go on with these episodes, but I want to share with you some health benefits of mushrooms and why you should be incorporating them into your diet. And also, a lot of people, I've been talking to a lot of people about this L. Reuteri yogurt that I make. And I know I've got some subscribers and people who listen that are attempting to make it themselves. And so I wanted to talk a little bit more about that because I'm learning that every batch that I'm making is a little bit different. And so if you're trying it for the first time, I just want to kind of share with you my experience with it. So to start off with, let's go ahead and tackle the yogurt. And I don't want to get too much into it. I've talked about it a lot in other episodes, but if you're new to this channel, you may not know what I'm talking about. And what it is L. reuteri, Lactobacillus reuteri is a bacteria that a lot of us are missing in our guts. And so to kind of long story short, it's a bacteria that was really helpful for skin, sleep, and mood. And you can actually make a fermented dairy product. Dr. Davis, who wrote the book Super Gut, this is his recipe. He's pretty clear in saying that it's not actually a technical yogurt because there's an official yogurt, I guess, has to have a couple other strains of bacteria that this particular L. reuteri yogurt does not have. So, but it's very yogurt-like. It's fermented, and it's actually fermented for 36 hours, which is longer than a traditional yogurt. And the purpose of that is it really amplifies that L. reuteri, for short, Lactobacillus reuteri bacteria that we need. So I started making this yogurt a while ago. My husband and I are eating it every day. It was really doing amazing things for skin and sleep. In fact, my husband, we started eating it at night because we were incorporating it different times of the day and really finding that if you eat it at night, maybe as your dessert before you go to bed, it really changes the way you sleep. And the reason is because that bacteria helps your body to produce more oxytocin, which is a feel-good hormone. And there's a lot more information in the book Super Gut. And again, I've talked about it in other episodes. But the more people I talk to about it, the more they're kind of excited about trying it on their own. So if you are making it, it's very, very simple. I'm going to create a special tab in the Belly Brain website so that you can easily find it because otherwise it's kind of buried in different episodes. But it's very simple. The ingredients that I'm using are organic half and half, inulin powder, which the powder that I have, it comes from artichoke. It's like a prebiotic fiber that the bacteria likes. And this helps to create the overall yogurt that we're looking for. And crushed up probiotic tablets or a certain tablet. And again, I'll put that in the website. that I'm using that you basically crush up, and it's super simple. You mix it all together and you put it. I have a little yogurt maker that I got off Amazon, and you ferment that for 36 hours. And again, it feels a little bit like a science experiment. So I'm having a hard time getting super consistent batches, but I don't really care because the whole point for me is that we're just trying to get that really good bacteria in. Sometimes it's a little bit runnier, sometimes a little bit firmer. But we're eating it with blueberries, and it's just, it's kind of become our dessert at night. And we really notice a difference in how we sleep when we have this yogurt. And there are ways to make it if you're non-dairy. There are ways to make it with coconut milk, although that what I've heard is that's a little bit more complicated. So now keep in mind, if you do dairy, but you might be concerned about being lactose intolerant. From what I'm understanding, with fermented dairy, it takes a lot of that. I don't know the science, the actual words behind it, but it makes it easier to digest. So you might want to give it a shot, maybe try it once, see if you can handle it. Also, if you are new to this yogurt, just like any kind of new probiotic that people take, you're going to have an adjustment period. I say start slow. Your body's got to get used to that new bacteria. Otherwise, you might end up with a lot of gas and bloating, which will eventually go away as you get used to it. But if this is something really new to you, start out slow, maybe like a third of a cup, quarter of a cup. You can mix it in with other yogurt. It's really good. And then work your way up. I think the recommendation is maybe a half a cup a day to a cup. And then as you build it up in your system, I guess you can get to a point where maybe you don't need to eat it every day. You could maybe get away with, a few nights a week. So it's a whole thing. It's definitely, if you're into cooking, if you're into experimenting, this is a fun way to do it. But if you are struggling with sleep, this might really be something to try. So I spent a little bit more time on that than I wanted to, but it's been something that's been coming up. And just be patient. And like I said, your expectation needs to be that it's not going to be the exact same every time. And that's not really the point. The point is it still tastes good. It's got what you need in it, and to be consistent with it. All right. So let's get to the gut brain paradox. Now, before I get started on this book, I want to share with you that we had a crazy week last week. And man, for a short week, a lot of stuff went wrong last week. And a lot of curveballs, one particular pretty scary curveball in our life. And we're fine. But I realized that because we're in a pretty good place, both my husband and I, we're pretty healthy right now. We really are careful about the foods that we're eating. We're not perfect, but with the focus on our health and the real understanding of our food and how our food affects our mood, I really think we were able to kind of navigate these situations that came up this week much better than we may have in the past. And the one thing that I really realized now that I've got my gut health in check, and I feel like I feel very balanced in my health these days. And I really think that has a huge impact on how we were able to handle some trauma this week, and to be a little more calm about it, not so reactionary. Definitely had to lean on my gratitude a lot, just being thankful that these situations weren't worse. But I'm just noticing that I am able to deal with high stress situations better than I used to. And I really think it's because I'm doing the work on my health, and I've got that balance going on right now in my body between my gut health and my brain health and my mood. So I'm saying that because I'm hoping that'll be encouraging to you, that, there are some things that you can do if you're doing the homework and you're doing the reps, that we can build ourselves up to be more resilient when tough things come our way. And so I just wanted to share that with you. But let's get to the gut brain paradox. I've got notes here, as you can see. If you're watching, I'm going to be looking around a lot. I always say that because I don't want people to think I'm just a weirdo up here. But the gut brain paradox was written by Dr. Stephen Gundry. He really does a great job of breaking down the gut brain connection. And I learned some things that I didn't know in this book too. And I'm pretty deep into this subject. So he has 6 key ideas, and I'm going to share with you what those are. But the first idea is that your gut shapes your mind more than you think. The second is your cravings aren't coming from you. And we've talked about that before, about how our gut microbiome and our little gut buddies, how they can drive some of the cravings that we have, and that certain people that suffer from addiction, they can have, like for people who really struggle with alcohol, that part of that could be that their gut microbiome and their gut buddies have gotten used to that alcohol and is actually causing cravings, and they want more of that. So because again, we know that your gut and your brain are connected and sending signals to each other constantly throughout the day. um, Tiny toxins can train or damage the brain, and those toxins can sneak through our gut lining. And that's why when you hear the term leaky gut, why that is so important to be aware of. And those ultra processed foods that we talked about in episode 1 of the gut disruptors, those chemicals and those bad things that are in these ultra processed foods can actually create leaky gut by affecting our mucosal lining, breaking it down, where then the toxins can sneak through and enter into our body. Another point that he makes is addiction is a microbiome survival strategy, which I just talked about, that those gut buddies, how they crave more of what we're giving them. So whatever that is, whether it's healthy foods, bad things, that's training them, and then they're then controlling us. I know that sounds really kind of nuts, but all of this is so fascinating that they're uncovering. So let's see, mental health disorders reflect microbial imbalance. And we've talked a little bit about that. Again, I never want to diminish any kind of mental health issue somebody's suffering from. We are learning more and more about how a lot of people that suffer from depression and anxiety, they have imbalances in their gut, and those things there could be a correlation there. And brain aging begins in the gut. So they're also making the connection between gut health and dementia and Alzheimer's. So he really dives into all of that and more. I'll read to you the forward of the book. In his previous best-selling, well, let me back up. Dr. Stephen R. Gundry, the New York Times best-selling author of the groundbreaking Paradox series, shares compelling evidence that our gut microbiome is driving our thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and our mental, emotional, and neuronal health, and shows us how to heal our microbiomes to take back control of our minds. In his previous best-selling books, Dr. Stephen R. Gundry taught readers how to reverse disease and improve health and well-being by preventing and repairing leaky gut. In The Gut-Brain Paradox, he delves even more deeply into the mysterious and long misunderstood world of the human microbiome. Here, Dr. Gundry uncovers the complex and multifaceted ways in which our microbes are controlling the health and functioning of our brains, and how the gut-brain connection is made long before we are even born. The Gut-Brain Paradox shines a fascinating light on how the 1-2 punch of leaky gut and gut dysbiosis, together driven by Western diets, overuse of antibiotics and other medications, and environmental toxins, allow pathogenic bacteria to take over. These bad bugs cause inflammation and hijack the intricate messaging systems that run from the gut to the brain, setting the stage for neurological changes, brain fog, neurodegeneration, mental health issues, personality alterations, and even addiction. However, these changes are reversible. Featuring the latest science, easy to follow recipes, and supplement guides, the Gut Brain Paradox shows us how to eat to restore not only our inner balance, but our mental energy and well-being too. Let's see, there's a couple of recommendations on the back. Once in a generation, a doctor comes along that completely changes the way we think about food and our health. Dr. Gundry is that physician. Following his advice, like I do personally, is life-changing, and that's from Tony Robbins. So one of the things that I love about bringing Belly Brain to you is that I'm learning things as I'm researching them, and it's kind of fun learning things together. And when I was listening to the audio version of this book, a word jumped out at me that I hadn't heard before, and that word is holobiome, holobiome. And, we've talked about oral microbiome, skin microbiome, gut microbiome, and holobiome. I guess the best way that I can describe it and the way I'm going to look at it, because the scientific description of it, which I had and lost here in my notes, is very detailed and kind of hard to understand. But I'm going to look at it like your whole microbiome, your whole body, all the different microbiome that makes up your body. One of the ways that it's described in this book is that I'll read this to you. It says, every day we are discovering shocking new things about the sheer number of microbes living in and around us, not to mention the countless complex ways they influence the health and behavior of us, their hosts. The microbes in and on our bodies, which in totality make up our holobiome, live primarily in our guts. This is generally referred to as our microbiome, but many other parts of our bodies contain their own mix of microbes. These microorganisms are an inextricable part of us. He says, I'd go so far to say that based on what we know now about our holobiomes, we must reconsider who and what we are as humans. Are we lone creatures or symbiotic communities made up of a combination of human and microbial cells? If you believe you are the former, by the end of the book, I hope to change your mind. In fact, I hope to change it in many ways. So, holobiome, that's super exciting to me. You know, there was a project called the 10-Year Human Microbiome Project in 2007. And that's where a lot of this new research has come from, and why we're really diving into and they're beginning to unlock the mysteries of our microbiome and how it affects us. So if you want more information on that, definitely research that project. I'm not going to get into it too much here. So holobiome, new word for me. Maybe that's the word of the week. A few other things that are in this book that I thought were pretty helpful. Some of this stuff, you know, I've kind of tackled before, but I really love the chapter that he has, chapter 6, the addiction microbiome, really diving into that connection between people who are suffering from addiction and what the role that their gut microbiome has to play in that, and how effective it can be when people are maybe going through some kind of a rehab where they're not only going through those steps that, you know, we all know can work, but really looking at what's going on in the microbiome and treating that as well. In fact, I know that there's emerging science and there's companies out there who are looking towards finding out and researching the specific bacterias that they're finding in the gut microbiomes of people who are suffering from mental health issues, who may be suffering from addiction. They're really beginning to study that to see if there is a way to counteract some of those microbes that are causing problems. So the addiction microbiome really stuck out to me. Treating depression via the gut, again, that kind of falls in line with, we know with belly brain now that you know, our gut and our brain are speaking to each other consistently throughout the day, sending signals to each other up through the vagus nerve. And by the way, excuse my dog if you can hear something barking in the background. There's probably a vicious chihuahua walking by outside, and he's completely freaking out with it. So hopefully I can edit that out. They're finding, you know, people who suffer from depression, that their microbiome has a different makeup than people who aren't. So I think that there's a lot of information in this book. If you haven't read any of the other books that I've recommended and you're kind of new to belly brain, I would start with this one. This by far, when this one came out, I was so excited because it really is covering everything that I'm trying to share with you in one easy place to really help you understand how it's all connected. He has protocols here for if you are suffering with some gut health issues. What was interesting to me is that he has a diet called the chicken and the sea diet. And I know that there's some people are doing a carnivore diet. And again, I don't subscribe to one diet theory here at Belly Brain. I feel like everybody's gut microbiomes are different. We're all going to react differently to foods that we eat. It's not just about what you eat, but it's about what your body individually, what your body does with the foods that we eat. But he explains that for some people who go on the carnivore diet, which people have found helpful for some people who struggle with autoimmune disease. One of the things that, and I've heard this before too, that somebody will go on a carnivore diet and they'll be feeling a lot better. So a lot of their inflammation's down. They kind of feel like they're cured. Yet, as maybe a year or two later, they're starting to see some of those symptoms return, or they're just not feeling great. He has a whole explanation for that, and recommends maybe trying a different version of a carnivore diet and really focusing more on fish and poultry. Not to say that you wouldn't eat red meat at all, but just kind of focusing on those. So I thought that was really interesting. And what I like is that he, Dr. Stephen Gundry, if you know who he is, he has been kind of the anti-lectin doctor. And I'm not going to get into lectins here because that's a whole other podcast. But it's interesting because he's made recommendations in the past of certain foods to avoid that he really felt like would cause gut dysbiosis. And he's changed his tune on some things, which I really appreciate. I feel like when people have a pretty adamant stance about something and are able to later change their minds, I feel like they're being honest. And I just really admire that. So, I mean, even for me, I've learned some things as I've gone down this road, and I'm happy to change my opinion if there's science out there to help me do that. And, the microbiome thing, I mean, this is kind of new. And 20 years ago, nobody looked at the gut microbiome like this. So there's going to be emerging science and things that may change. But the idea is that for me, I'm trying to stay connected and in tune with all that information so that I could bring it to you. So I really appreciated the fact that he changed his mind on some things and was willing to admit that. So gut brain paradox, recommend it. Recommend it to your friends. I don't know if I linked this yet on the website, but I will, just so you can find it easy. But I got it off Amazon. I bought the hard copy. If anybody wants to borrow it, you're more than welcome. I will loan it to you. And let's see, we'll get into our food of the week, mushrooms. All right. So I am not really a foodie type. I know, which is weird because I'm talking about nutrition. But for me, I could probably eat the same thing every day and be fine. And some of that might stem from the fact that I've always had to really watch my weight. So I have kind of this weird relationship with food, which I'm working on, to where my whole life it's been more about what I can't eat than what I can eat. And part of my getting over that is, for me, understanding the nutritional value of food really helps me with it, because I can kind of shift that thinking from, oh, I need to eat this because this is really good for my body and this is why, and these are the nutrients that are in it. So I'm trying to become more of a quote unquote foodie myself, because curiosity of food, people who, my foodie friends, like, I really admire their love of food and their love of cooking and yeah, just kind of the adventures that they love to go on with food. And I'm trying to be more like that. So in that, I feel like foodie friends, they really know a lot about mushrooms and what mushrooms for what dish and how to prepare them. And I've always been a little bit intimidated with mushrooms. I don't know why. I guess I felt like they were just kind of they're for the fancy people. However, I have been incorporating mushrooms into my life more recently, and my husband and I love them. And so I thought, well, I'm going to share with you some of the health benefits of them and why we should be incorporating them in their diet, because that really, again, helps me to feel really good about eating them. So I'm going to break it down. Mushroom 101. So some of the primary types of mushrooms that are out there: chanterelle, which are shaped like a trumpet. Okay, I know what those are. Cremini, baby Bella, those are firm and dark. I know we use those. Enoki, small white stems with caps. Maybe we see those in I don't know, like maybe Chinese food. Maitake, dimpled and spongy. Oyster, fan-shaped with a thin cap. I know what those are. Porcini, thick-stemmed with a reddish-brown cap. And portobello, brown with a thick, large cap. Okay, I know what those are. So some of those mushrooms you're probably aware of. I wouldn't be able to recognize all of them if I saw them. But as I experiment more with them, maybe I will. Okay, so what is in a mushroom? Mushrooms contain, and this is from the Cleveland Clinic. This is where I got all this information from. So, there's a shiitake mushroom too, ivory colored stem and a dark brown cap. So I know what that one is too. What's in a mushroom? Mushrooms contain health boosting vitamins and minerals along with protein and fiber. For example, 1 cup of cremini mushrooms has only 15 calories, but 2 grams of protein and nearly 1 gram of fiber. I knew about the fiber. I didn't know about the protein. That's exciting. Mushrooms also contain compounds including polysaccharides and sterols, which may help protect your health and prevent disease. Nutrients in mushrooms include selenium. So selenium is also a nutrient that we find in Brazil nuts. So I incorporate a couple of Brazil nuts every day into my diet. I've heard that they can help with promote thyroid function. So that's something that I do. Vitamin B6, which can support your nervous system. riboflavin, niacin, and pantothenic acid, which help carry out several metabolic reactions and are involved in the production of energy, potassium, zinc, and let's see what else. 7 benefits of eating mushrooms. They can help to boost your immune system by fighting inflammation. They can help to lower blood pressure because of the potassium in them. Potassium is a mineral that can help, and like an electrolyte, that can help to control your blood pressure, support weight loss. In one study, people who substituted 20% of their meat consumption with mushrooms showed improved weight loss results. This was interesting to me. I knew about mushrooms and vitamin D, but I didn't understand how it all worked. So I'll read this to you. Mushrooms can supply vitamin D. Vitamin D2, a type of vitamin D, keeps your bones strong and muscles working properly. Most of our vitamin D comes from animal-based sources, dietary supplements, and good old sunshine. And here's a fun fact. Some mushrooms have a label that reads UV treated or rich in vitamin D. That's because mushrooms contain ergosterol, ERGOSTEROL, which turns into vitamin D when exposed to ultraviolet light. These UV treated mushrooms are enriched for your health. When mushrooms are exposed to ultraviolet radiation or even sunlight, the ergosterol transforms into vitamin D. So you get a high concentration of vitamin D when you eat them, potentially enough to meet 100% of your vitamin D needs for the day. You can buy UV treated or vitamin D enriched mushrooms at the store, or you can try it at home. Slice 1 portobello or 3 smaller white button or crimini mushrooms. Leave them in direct sunlight for as little as 15 minutes. Sun and done. I never heard of this. I don't 100% know that it's true. So I'm going to do a little more research on it, only because I had heard somewhere that you can't just eat mushrooms to get vitamin D, that you still have to supplement it. So I'm going to come back to you with information on that because I'm really, really curious. That just sounds amazing to me. If you could just put your mushrooms out in sunlight and a natural way to get vitamin D versus taking a supplement. I don't know that I would recommend that, but I'd like to know more. So I will come back to you with more information on that. Mushrooms can protect brain health because they're rich in polyphenols, which contain certain antioxidants that may help protect against neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. They can help to maintain heart health because they help to prevent plaque buildup. They can improve your gut health, which was what we are all about in this belly brain adventure. So they can help to balance your gut microbiome. Again, they've got fiber in them, which is always helpful. They can help support our digestive system. Okay, so are mushrooms safe? Well, we know there's the other kind of mushrooms, the psychedelic ones. That's not what we're talking about today. If that's what you're into, cool. I've heard some pretty amazing things about people who are microdosing those kinds of mushrooms for all kinds of things. So, but I'm staying away from that topic. But we're talking about the mushrooms that you cook with, and sometimes people go hunting for, which makes me really nervous because all I can think of is the fact that there's poisonous mushrooms out there, and I know I wouldn't know the difference, but I know that the people who are into it typically do know the difference. So wild mushrooms, it says here, wild mushrooms you find in nature are much, much riskier to eat. It takes experience and expertise to identify mushrooms in nature you can safely eat. Even then, few wild mushrooms are safe to eat raw. Dozens of mushrooms, often called toadstools, contain a deadly poison. Symptoms of mushroom poisoning typically appear within a few hours of eating mushrooms. They include confusion, diarrhea, difficulty breathing or slowed breathing, dilated pupils or watering eyes, excess saliva, excitability, nausea or vomiting, and sweating. Good stuff. So again, I guess if you're eating wild mushrooms, I think if somebody came up to me that is a mushroom hunter and said, "Oh, I've got these mushrooms that I picked," I would probably go Google that before I eat it. Not to say I don't trust my friends, but I don't know. It just seems a little bit risky. All right. So ways to incorporate mushrooms into your diet. One of the things that I love to do is when I make a meatloaf, I make sure I leave plenty of room around the meatloaf in the pan, and I just throw in mushrooms with it. And what I love about mushrooms is how they really absorb the flavor of whatever you're cooking them with. So I had seen a chef on TV who had said, "Don't wash your mushrooms." I don't know about that. I wash mine. And I can't really remember why he said don't wash them. So I'm not sure that I should even be bringing it up. But Google it. Like if you need to know, should you be washing your mushrooms? I think maybe it had something to do with the flavor and the texture, but I wash mine. But I throw them in a pan around the meatloaf. I throw them in stews. Anything that goes in the crock pot, typically I'm throwing mushrooms in with it because again, they do absorb that taste of the food that you're cooking. So they're just great for adding texture and fiber. And now we know protein, which is exciting. Um, Spaghetti sauce, I slice them up and put them in my spaghetti sauce, and it just kind of adds another texture to it. We like to fry them up or saute them in garlic and butter, throw it over our steaks. So those are very, very basic ways that I'm incorporating mushrooms into our diet. And I know I've got some foodie friends out there who have way more elaborate ideas of how you can use them. And if you do have any great mushrooms that you like or mushroom recipes, let me know. I would love to find more ways to incorporate them into my diet. But yeah, mushrooms, good for you. Give them a try. See if you can kind of experiment with them. I'm really fascinated about this whole UV vitamin D mushroom thing. So I'm going to look into that more. And yeah, hopefully you can just, make it another healthy choice in your diet. They do kind of fill you up, which is great. So if you're looking at needing to lower your calories, then mushrooms are a great way to kind of add bulk to what you're eating. Okay, I think that's probably enough about mushrooms. For next week, I would like to bring to you a little more information on heartburn and acid reflux. I realize that that's something a lot of people are going through, and there's definitely a connection between your, gut dysbiosis and those issues. And I know that they really can impact sleep and it's really painful. And I would love to know more about the foods that cause it, what's happening in the body when you are experiencing that on a consistent basis. What are some choices and maybe some foods that we can use to help kind of stave that off and maybe help just avoid it altogether before reaching to like a pro pump inhibitor, or some kind of medicine. I personally would just like to know more about it. So I figure if I do, then maybe you do too. And we can kind of learn more about it together. So that's it. Thank you for tuning in. I will see you next week. I hope this helps. Bye.